Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time this last weekend. We were in Jasper, Alabama. Great time there. We went in Birmingham Friday night, and then Sunday morning in Jasper. Wonderful time. If you're anywhere in the Dayton area, we'll be at Dayton, Ohio at Living Word Sunday night, this coming Sunday, and then we're on the board of that church. We'll be in board meetings for a couple of days. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. You had several this last week do a few things that point us toward that. Now, why would that be a big deal? Well, that's exactly what the Bible says you'll see just after the rapture, because the second coming has tons of signs, but the rapture is signless. So if you can kind of point out what's happening around there, you get a little bit more of what's going on. And man, if you see all of the second coming signs happening right now, that tells us the rapture can't be too far away. So how exciting is that? You know, we need to know these things so that we can tell what the finish line looks like. I've never seen a runner be in a race and go, what in the world is that? No, they know exactly what the finish line looks like. So we get into end time teaching, not for an escape theology, but for a hustle theology. You always accelerate when you see the finish line. In a car race, white flag goes out, the crowd goes wild, and you floor it. You give it your max. You max it out. If red line is 6,000, you go to 7,000. You just do more. And so the Lord warned us to know how close we were. Remember, he rebuked the Pharisees over and over and over again, but the only time he rebuked the crowd was, he said, you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't know your hour of visitation. So he wanted them to know. Also, you had him come into the madman of Gadara, yelled out, the demons yelled out, are you come to torment us before the time? So the demons knew he had a schedule, but he was early. So if demons could know the schedule, how much more the church? And there's so many verses showing us where we are. So much of the Bible shows us where we are. The book of Daniel, book of Revelation, other verses to show us exactly where we are, specifically Luke 21:24 about Jerusalem being won back and about Israel being made a nation. That's huge. So we're just a greatly blessed generation to live when all of this is playing out right in front of us. So things happened this last week, man. Number one, it was I can't believe it's been a year. So it was 2 days ago. It was October 7th, a year ago, when Hamas just came across into Israel, killed women and children, babies, and burned children in front of their parents. Just absolutely atrocious. And of course, since then, the whole world has come against Israel going, you're overreacting. They're not overreacting. They're responding to what happened. It was the equivalent of 39 9/11s. So it was a big deal. I mean, 9/11 to America, you got everyone all over America, this will never happen again. But you had the equivalent of 39 of those. It was hideous what happened. I looked at security footage when we got to go there, and I saw how the Hamas people, terrorists, came over, and a lot of the Israeli soldiers thought it was a drill, and they just stood there and said hi to them, and they got shot. So, man, it's a huge deal, this happening last October. And Israel's responding in such a way they have to just to stay alive. Can you imagine being completely surrounded? Look at what happened this last week. You had about 60 rockets from Hamas fired into central Israel. Now, Hamas in Gaza, this is from Gaza with Hamas. This is not Hezbollah from the north of Lebanon. This is Gaza, where Israel's been fighting since then, and they're still firing rockets. So you had a barrage of jets go down in there, and I think they hit about 70 targets. 70 targets still available to be hit because they keep hiding all their rocket launchers and all that. I mean, so they're having to deal with that. They're having to deal with the Houthis firing missiles from Yemen. You had Turkey bring down ships. Erdogan sent ships from Turkey down to Lebanon to evacuate people, but also it sent a signal. He sent warships down, and he said like 2 or 3 times this last week, we've got to annihilate Israel. I'm in awe that a president of a nation will say that, and other nations won't rebuke him. But they should be rebuking him, going, you can't say we're going to decimate and wipe a nation off the map. That's insane. But see, what's happening right now is a lot of insanity. You had our President Biden, meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. Actually, it was a phone call. And Biden cussed at him a couple times, saying, what are you doing? Because what happened was last week, remember when they killed Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, they went and got the second in command a couple days ago. So, man, remember an Iranian guy shook Nasrallah's hand and it marked him, and they could trace him all over the land. So our president got mad at Netanyahu for killing the next guy. And Benjamin Netanyahu said, well, if you hit them hard, they'll negotiate better. Well, if they're going to kill women and children, they ought to be getting shot at. So it's insane that nations all over the earth are coming against Israel. So it's just bizarre. But you had the defense minister that was going to come take a trip to America. Netanyahu's called all the high ministers and defense people together at the Mossad, all of them. So what are they getting ready for? It looks like they're getting ready to go ahead and attack Iran. Now, the first thing they talked about was hitting oil refineries and nuclear places. And what they said about that was China's going to freak out because it gets a lot of their oil from Iran. But it'll probably be a radical strike. It won't just be one little thing. It'll probably be over and over again. And we saw how precise the bunker buster bombs were when hitting Nasrallah. I mean, absolutely amazing to be hitting a spot 1 second after another over and over again. So it wouldn't surprise me at all they'd be able to do that with Iran. So there's a freak out talk of all that. Every leader is talking about that. You got Saudi Arabian leaders calling other country leaders. You got France calling this one, going, what is going to happen when Israel hits Iran? Well, you look at that, and Iran's president is meeting with Putin this week. Why is he doing that? You have the players for the Ezekiel 38 war talking and coming together. You got Turkey sending warships down to Lebanon. You've got the president of Iran meeting with Putin. You got Putin firing hypersonic missiles into the Ukraine this last week. There's so much going on. One thing I do like is Israel's got a brand new laser weapon, though. They said it was working this last week to get an anti-tank missile. So, man, when you got all their different levels of defense, so you think, well, is all we do is talk about war? Well, the wars that are coming mark where they are, and the wars that have happened before shows how God intervenes and helps Israel. So the ones that are coming are so radical that you can see the forefront of it right now. So we're blessed, we're privileged. So we always do this. So once we see all these things happening, remember, the end times should not scare you, because I love it that we don't have to be concerned. There's no bad news for the church, but these are scary times for the world, because once we're caught up, it's going to only go down here from there. Man, you don't want to be here during the tribulation. So let's go to the Word. The Word always shows us everything. The Word clarifies everything and gives us strength, gives us boldness, gives us courage, gives us joy. And we get into all these things because He loves you. He wants to bless you. He said, when you see these things come to pass, lift up your heads. Your redemption draws nigh, indicating He doesn't want you downtrodden. So you got Israel regathered in our lifetime. Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two will not pass away till all is fulfilled. Then you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You got foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. You have fish in the Dead Sea. You have the Dead Sea turned blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was. I mean, that's radical. It happened on the Day of Atonement last fall. That's completely radical. You got fish, birds, 172 different species of predatory birds start showing up in the land. I mean, that's remarkable. You have the cleanup crew there now. You have Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri prophesy that Israel will be ruled by two Benjamins right before the Lord comes back. Benjamin Netanyahu and Benjamin Gantz rule together. You've got Russia rebuild the archway for Baal worship in Palmyra. So they could have that. The Talmud says that's the last sign you'll see before the Messiah comes. So you got sign after sign after sign after sign. You got men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. So you have all these signs. There's about 79 or 80 in the book. And man, when you run through them all, it just preaches to us and communicates to us how near we are to seeing Jesus face to face. And what it's all about is, man, you need to get your relationship with Him strong, bold, daring. Communicate with Him even more because He's your King. You want to get to know Him before we get there. You don't want it to be too much of a surprise. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing when we get to see Him face to face. But you got all these signs, and you go from signs to signals. And the signals were pretty radical because you had blood red moons. You had 4 in a row. NASA calls that a tetrad. So you had blood red moons, 4 in a row. Guess what the dates were on 4 in a row, the years that happened? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. I mean, remarkable. So you have pointed days when God did things with Israel and things happened in the earth. Too wild. After that, you've got the Bethlehem star. Remarkable. You have Jupiter, king planet, Regulus, a king planet, Venus, a mother planet. So you had those three come together at the birth of Jesus. The constellation was Virgo. This last year, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. We got Jupiter, Regulus, Venus. Regulus did retrograde motion. It crowns Jupiter. Well, what happened? What was the constellation then? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So all this stuff points to the coming of the Lord. I didn't even get all there were fireballs seen over Texas this week. Spain, you had a fireball. You have radical meteor showers this last week. So you got things happening in the heavens, things happening with planets, and the king's about to come back. You had an earthquake in Iran. You had a couple of earthquakes in Los Angeles and California. So the earth is getting ready for this. Why not the church? If birds are getting ready, if Russia's getting ready, all these other groups are getting ready, what's the church doing? We have to do the will of God. So we look unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. We lay aside weights and sins that would so easily hold us back, and we go for it looking at Him. I believe you'll finish your course with joy. And as we see all these things pointing to His return, there'll be great strength, great boldness, and an acceleration mentality in your heart to do the will of God. We are about to see the King soon. And very soon we're going to see the King. One of these days I might sing on here, so I have everyone tell me not to do that. But I can't wait to see the King. Come back next week and we'll look at all what's happened. This has been an anniversary week of the war that started on October 7th. We'll see what happens this next week, and we'll see exactly how close we are to the King coming back.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.